top of page 427, this procedure scares me a little bit, but they tell me not to worry. It doesn't happen the way I'm picturing it. But this is transmyocardial revascularization, and they take a laser to burr holes into your myocardium to restore perfusion to areas of the heart where blood flow has been impaired. I'm seeing every time your heart contracts, the blood goes spurting out all over your body, but they tell me the holes are not that deep. Well, that's good to know. But if you're trying to code that, you're going to code it out to the root operation repair. The approach could either be open or percutaneous endoscopy or percutaneous. And this is one of the ones we talked about the other night where they might use that intraoperative fluorescent angiography. So remember, we looked at it back on page 414. That one codes out to imaging, fluoroscopy. Remember, we differentiated it from the others because we had the qualifier for laser and the qualifier for intraoperative. So that's how you would code TMR. All right. On page 428, down at the bottom, it's talking about your left atrial appendage. Anybody know what that is? I didn't name it. It's a small pouch that's connected and drains into the left atrium. And it doesn't really have a purpose, or at least they are not clear yet what its purpose is. So you might think appendage, because our appendix doesn't really have a purpose either. Left atrial appendage, a little pouch. And the reason they go in and they either want to occlude it, walk it off, or they want to cut it out because they're afraid that a person might form a clot in there, and then when the heart contracts or whatever, it might throw the clot out and cause them to have a stroke. And they say that they do that a lot with people that have atrial fibrillation. And one reason is because, and I didn't know this, but people with atrial fib have 5 to 7 times more likely to have a stroke. Okay? So that's a part of the treatment for the atrial fib, so they don't get that clot in there and then kick it out. So the way they do this is you're going to have to figure out, because it could either be an excision where they go in and remove it, or they could destroy it, so ablate it, freeze it, whatever they're going to do to get it out of there. Or they can repair it, which would be more like suturing it closed or stapling it closed. Okay, so you have to know the method that they use, whether they're going to remove it or repair it or destroy it. There's another fun one at the top of page 429. This is also for atrial fibrillation, and this is called the maze procedures, and there's several different procedures, and I think the difference between them is the patterns that they create in the heart. So what they do is they go in, they used to cut. They used to make cuts in the heart, and then the scar tissue would form the line that caused that wouldn't let the arrhythmia go through. Okay, but now they're mainly doing ablation with linear ablations to make those lines. Okay, and so if they can stop that abnormal rhythm from going through, then the hope is that they'll stop the atrial fib. Okay. So like when you hear them say maze 1, 2, and 3, I think those are all just different patterns of how they're going to put the blocks in there. Okay. So the thing to keep in mind is that it can be done, you're going to have to know the approach here basically. So it can be done open, and you can see they've given you the codes for that on 429. That's going to be whether they do it on the right or left side of the atrium. Okay. And then you can see a little bit lower in the next paragraph, they've given you the codes for the percutaneous approach. Again, just the difference of whether it's right or left. And then finally in the third paragraph, the thoracoscopic approach. That is the newest technique. Okay, so down at the very bottom of that, you can see one example. It says a patient with chronic persistent atrial fib undergoes a minimally invasive epicardial radiofrequency maze procedure via pericardioscopy assistance. So we know it's endoscopic, right? And at surgery, the thorax is entered and a full thickness ablation of the right atrial tissue is accomplished. So you can see here we're going under destruction. It's a destruction of the right atrium. It's percutaneous endoscopic approach. Okay. So with the maze procedure, figure out whether it's open, endovascular, percutaneous, or via endoscope.
So, on the endovascular, percutaneous, do we also code the cardiac, or in the catheter in that as well, or is there
No.
of that?
I think that's just a part of how they're doing it. So then at the bottom of the page, they're talking about heart assist device. Basically, they've just given you on the next page all the different codes for heart assist device, depending on whether it is implanted, an implantable heart assist device, or whether it's external heart assist system. Okay, and then the internal one, they usually put the pump into the abdominal wall, and the idea is that that pump takes over the performance for the left ventricle. The one that makes me nervous is at the top of page 430, because there they are taking out both your right and left ventricle and putting in a right and left ventricle for you. So if something were to go wrong with your mechanical one, there's nothing left there to kick in for you. So I'm sure it never goes wrong. I'm sure there's a fail-safe system. So that one is called the total internal biventricular replacement. And the ventriculectomies to remove your right and left are included in that. They're replacements. And remember, whenever you code a replacement and you're taking out the original body part, you don't have to code the removal of that. It's only if they go back in and revise it and you have to take out the device and replace it. But removal of the original body part is included in the replacement code.
Would you do an absence of code?
You could, yeah. Afterwards, you could have an absence acquired of your ventricle. That just scares me. God, don't take my heart. Okay, so you can kind of look those over. They've given you all the codes for insertion, revision, removals. Of course, the synthetic heart is going to be the replacement. Okay, on page 431, they're talking about implantable infusion pumps versus vascular access device. Okay, so the infusion pump is going to be where they